History, as it is often told, prefers clarity. It favors beginnings that are clean, transformations that are decisive, and identities that appear almost inevitable in retrospect. Medieval Britain, in this simplified narrative, emerges from the ashes of Rome, baptized into Christianity, and shaped into kingdoms that would eventually become England, Scotland, and Wales. Yet this telling conceals more than it reveals. When the legions of the Roman Empire withdrew from Britain in the early 5th century, they did not leave behind an empty land. They left a landscape imprinted with roads, cities, villas, and systems of governance. Yet what vanished was not infrastructure alone, it was the framework of meaning that held society together. The end of Roman rule did not produce immediate chaos, nor did it produce continuity. It created something far more ambiguous, a world in which old structures remained but no longer functioned as they once had. Roman towns became hollowed shells, literacy declined, long-distance trade faltered. But memory lingered. The idea of Rome, its order, its authority, its universality, continued to haunt the imagination of those who lived in its aftermath. One of the most striking features of early medieval Britain is not what we know, but what we do not. The period between the 5th and 7th centuries is often described as the Dark Ages, not because it was devoid of activity, but because it is poorly illuminated by written sources. What survives are fragments, archaeological remains, scattered inscriptions, later chronicles colored by myth and political agendas. Among these is the work of Gildas, whose account of Britain's collapse is less a history. No story of medieval Britain is complete without the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, groups traditionally identified as Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, who settled in parts of Britain during the 5th and 6th centuries. Yet even this seemingly foundational event is shrouded in uncertainty. Later sources, such as the ecclesiastical history of Bede, present a narrative of invasion and replacement, Germanic peoples sweeping into Britain, displacing or subjugating the native Britons. No story of medieval Britain is complete without the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, groups traditionally identified as Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, who settled in parts of Britain during the 5th and 6th centuries. Yet even this seemingly foundational event is shrouded in uncertainty. Later sources, such as the ecclesiastical history of Bede, present a narrative of invasion and replacement, Germanic peoples sweeping into Britain, displacing or subjugating the native Britons. In the traditional narrative, the native Britons are pushed to the margins, retreating into Wales, Cornwall, and the northern kingdoms that would later form Scotland. Yet this marginalization may be more literary than historical. The survival of Celtic languages and cultures in these regions is undeniable, but their persistence elsewhere is harder to trace. Place names, genetic studies, and subtle continuities in material culture suggest that the Britons did not simply vanish. Amid the political and cultural transformations of early medieval Britain, another force was at work, one that reshaped not only society, but the way people understood history itself. This was the spread of Christian church. Christianity had existed in Roman Britain, but its survival after the collapse of Roman authority was uneven. In some regions, it persisted, in others, it faded. No figure embodies the blurred line between history and myth more than King Arthur. Whether he existed as a historical person remains uncertain, but his significance lies elsewhere. Arthur represents a memory, a longing for a lost age of unity and heroism, often associated with the last resistance of the Britons against the Anglo-Saxons. His story, elaborated in later medieval literature, transforms a fragmented past into a narrative of greatness. Amid the focus on change, Roman withdrawal, Anglo-Saxon migration, Christian conversion, it is easy to overlook what remained constant. The land itself, for instance, did not change. Rivers flowed as they always had, fields were cultivated, paths became roads and then faded again.